Welcome to Together We Serve. We are where we unite business and life to impact your world. My name is Steve Ramona, and I am your host. I believe extraordinary things happen when we come together with a shared purpose. Let's dive into stories of resilience, compassion, and community, and discover how to develop an impact by together serving each other and serving others. I'm excited to have my guest on. I've known my guests. I've met in person a number of times, I believe, and we've really developed a great friendship and a great business partnership. And we serve together. We're always giving each other introductions, referrals, but more importantly, he's going to talk about brand. Besides sales, I think brand is right in front of that. If you don't have a good brand, you don't have sales, you don't have a company, goodbye. Well, he doesn't let that happen. Let's bring on my friend Hersh. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. It's awesome to see you, buddy, as always, and great to be here.
Well, and we had fun on the podcast. We've been on each other's podcast. This is a new venture for us. And, I'm excited because this thing happens every time we get together. The crowd is always cheering, right, loving us. Yeah, right?
We always put on a show. It always becomes a show. Even when we were doing on mastermind calls and stuff, we would just create our own show in the middle of the project. It was great, and we've done it on each other's shows. And congrats on this venture as well.
Thank you. Maybe we'll have a little time to do that as well. Have some fun with the audience. So the first question I want to ask, which I think is super important, is can you explain the process of message therapy? Love the name, and what can our clients expect to get from that?
Thank you. I'm glad you love the name, because really it came from the idea that I realized that my superpower isn't just writing. I mean, I'm always holding a pencil, but I'm always writing. But listening to my clients is really what I do. And so I realized that it's kind of like therapy. And I had some clients say that, oh, this is like therapy. I get to talk about my problems in life and business. And as I say, all branding is personal. So the part that deals with their personal brand or even their corporate brand is very, very much about what's going on in their world, what their personality is, what drives them. And so we do deep dives in my practice, in my message therapy practice. And I'm teaching other experts to do message therapy as well, because I feel like it's starting to take off. It's this kind of thing that people have come in, they have something they want to fix, something they want to achieve with their image. And we just start with a 1 hour session that breaks everything down in terms of what do we need to accomplish over the next 12 weeks. And then we do a session every week. And the deliverables are not just, gee, I feel great. Like after therapy, if you've gone to psychotherapy, you might say, oh, I had a breakthrough. Oh, it felt really great. I like seeing this person. It makes me feel good. And it goes on forever. That's not really what this is. It's very goal oriented.
I like that. Let's throw in the elephant in the room early. I was going to do it later, but AI. We've had conversations about that. I know what you do is much better because it humanizes it. But jump into that, why someone would go to Hersh, you, to get this message. And if I could just chop in ChatGPT, go, I want a dog company, and it pops up all this messaging.
Right. And I used to, when AI took center stage a couple of years ago, I joked that a great tagline for AI would be when it doesn't really matter. Because the fact is, AI is a great tool. AI continues to evolve. It continues to be useful. I use it. I have no problem with AI, but I feel like AI is not where I would turn to it at this point for strategy and for guidance. AI isn't really designed to guide us in our lives and tell us how to be our best self and put our best foot forward and really represent our brand. I think that we're still in a place where a human, I have another company called Humanize, which is spelled human eyes, EYES, because it puts eyes on AI content that people have generated and really says, okay, is this really on brand for me? Is this really where I'm coming from? We're the creators. We need to train AI. We need to train Google to understand what we want it to understand about ourselves. So I think sometimes we get it a little backwards. We think that we're working for AI, and AI is going to tell us what to do. AI only is as good as we are presenting it. Same thing with PR. I'll tell clients, don't hire a publicist and then hire me to fix your message. Let's work together, get your message straight. Then let's work on then you can deal with SEO. Then you can deal with web presence. Then you can deal with sales, as you pointed out. Then you can deal with PR. This stuff comes first, and I think it's really super important. So however important it is to you, that's whether you decide, do you want to farm it out to AI, or do you want to take a personal interest in
So it's not magic?
You know what? We might have had a conversation about this before. Sometimes what we're doing, what we're creating in the moment does feel like magic, but I think it's much more about, like I said, the deep dive, who we are as people. Every person is different. Every person has that individual spark that sets them apart. That's one of those AI things. It's like, I don't know if we can count on AI to really find out how to communicate that special spark that only we have.
Yeah. That's see, and that's why I have audience. I have Hersh on. I've known him for a while. Like I said, we're more than just business people. We're friends. But this message thing is huge because there's a lot of noise out there. How do you help people break through the noise?
Yep.
How do you help them break through the noise?
Oh, how do you help? That was a question.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I thought it was just a big statement. It was a mic drop moment.
I got to do this. I got to start doing this because my voice.
It was a mic drop moment. We got to help them break through the noise.
Yes.
We're out. Ramona out. Yeah. How do we make them break through the noise? One of the things that I hear most often, clients will come to me and say, why does my profile, my website, why does this all my messaging sound like I'm like everybody else when I do this and I do that? And I said, that's because you're not taking the lead. You're not taking the risk or being bold enough to say, I'm different. So if you think about it, everybody who's marketing themselves or their brand wants to be different, but nobody really has the guts to stand out and be different. And you have to find that thing when you're taught, if you're posting on LinkedIn, that's stuff that we work through in message therapy. That's why this is so much fun, is like, let's look at your posts and let's kind of take them apart and see what maybe you reposted something. Did you bring something new to it? Not necessarily. Let's look at what you're reposting. Let's put the mind back in mindful posting. Start thinking this stuff through. Be intentional about every single thing that you post. I don't post a ton, but everything that I post, I've really given thought to. I'm not just posting to meet a quota. I will say about AI, Steve, that I don't think AI sits there and goes, okay, are we posting too much? Is this really on? They're just gonna spin it out. It's not AI's fault, but it's just gonna spin it out.
Yeah, grab and go. And audience, my quick story. I was a client of Hersh's. I had a sponsor. I was stuck. I wanted my very first sponsor of my podcast. I wanted to be right. Reached out, paid you, and you did a beautiful message for my advertiser, for the advertising. Yeah. And he actually got a lot of hits. If I would have done it myself with AI, I'm sure it would have less hits. How much, that doesn't matter to me, but I know there's value, and the value of the brand is so big. I didn't want to waste time trying to do it. I could have spent hours trying to craft message and delete, roll up that paper, throw it in the garbage, roll that paper, whatever I do. But the power of having you do it.
Steve,
Go ahead.
what helped me, thank you for saying that, but what helped me do that for you was our exposure to one another, in not in real life, just meeting it, because we did that before. We did that before we met in person, but still coming on my show, playing back and forth with me, playing games on the Yes Brand podcast, playing improv games, loosening up, all that stuff is, and I now have a more systemized way of doing this with clients through an intake process. But it was what I would consider to be a version of the intake process, asking you silly questions and seeing how you respond to them. All of that stuff gives me a sense of who you really are, what's really important to you. And that stuff is important to know when you're creating content.
Secret sauce right there, audience. That is a mic drop I've ever heard one. Big mic drop too. Yeah, big large. There we go. Thank you.
I'm not going to drop this. However,
no, don't drop this mic. We have expensive mics. Yeah, they stay right where they are. That's very good.
Yeah.
What I loved about you when I first met you was your background. And I actually had conversations with you. Talk about your background, because to me, yeah, you could start out and be start this whole branding thing as a business, and you're going to have to grow. But I always say, if somebody has experience, they have a leg up. Tell us about your background.
Well, it's an unusual one in that I started in stand-up comedy. And, when I was in my early 20s, and I was going to School of Visual Arts in New York City, and I was studying filmmaking. I hadn't even expected to go into branding or advertising or marketing or anything. And I was doing stand-up comedy. And at SVA, at film school, the chairman of the school said you should take a couple of advertising courses, because you could sell a line on a piece of paper. You just have a real way with pitching and words and all that stuff. You should study that. And I did, and got a job right out of there in commercials, in commercial production, not writing commercials, but representing directors of TV commercials. And it put me right in the middle of some of the biggest spots, Super Bowl spots, and all this stuff, and being on set and meeting filmmakers. And I started writing bios for filmmakers because they had no one else doing it in the commercial world. Directors who were doing commercials for Visa and Charles Schwab and Frito-Lay, but they needed their own press. And so I became a kind of an OG publicist in the commercial production and post-production world. And that's where things took off. And I just realized how much I loved brands and creative and the marriage between the two. And the humor just always found its way in. Everybody has a different sense of humor, different sensibility, but I think timing is universal. You have to bring really good timing, even on the page. Right.
And the crowd cheering, yeah, it's a little crowd cheering, because when I heard that, and we're going to do a little improv later on after the first second.
Good.
We'll do a 5-minute and kind of show you, because you come from a different perspective than other copywriters, or even copywriter or branding people. You bring a little humor into it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And doing stand-up, you are drawing out the tension as long as you possibly can. And you're pulling back that arrow. And when it finally gets to be unbearable and you can't hold it anymore, and you can tell the audience is like a cloud full of rain, right? And you just let that arrow loose, and everybody relaxes and lets go and laughs. There's no greater feeling of power almost in the world. And then at the same time, stand-up teaches you humility, because sometimes it's that thing where that arrow just flip, like if you've ever done archery and not done well, it just kind of gets away from you, and then that's my sound effect. And then you get that wah, 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 and it just doesn't work. So what? So what? Business is trial and error. Entrepreneurship is trial and error. So you build a kind of a stomach for it.
Lots of passion in your voice. Another reason I really like working with you, and because I think that's important. I know you're out there to serve and help and bring tons of value, But what was your inspiration to do all this? I know you told us a little bit of your background, but what inspired you?
Um, what inspires me, I think that I really believe this. I think that whatever our expertise is, we ignite when we solve a problem and then see someone else with the same problem and think, I can help them. And not everybody becomes a coach or, a solution provider. But with me, I went through this, we talked about all the great stuff in the background, but the fact is it created a kind of an identity crisis. And I think that being part comedian, part copywriter, part business owner, part publicist, part this and that, podcaster, all these different things, create an identity crisis. And when I realized that I was a message therapist, that really ultimately, no matter how you slice it and dice it, I'm a message therapist. That's what I do. It was like an epiphany. And I was like, that's where I can really help people. Because doing copy for Nike is pays well, but the fact is, it's like I'm not going to change the destiny of Nike. So there wasn't a servant, element to that. There wasn't a real way of helping people, and I felt like between the Truth Tastes Funny podcast, which is really about helping people and hearing stories. Here, I'm not helping the guests are sharing their stories of triumph over adversity with an audience that's been through a lot of adversity, as we all have over the last several years. And and that's a service, and it wasn't anything monetized. It was just a way to meet people, share their incredible stories with an audience that wants to go forward. So I think that, combined with finding something that I was able to fix in myself and then bringing those strategies to other people, is the part that really inspires me.
And you said serve or servant a number of times in that inspiration. And that's the power of it. If you're going to find, we'll just use your industry, branding, naming, whatever you want to call it, but that messaging, the one that serves, the one that doesn't, audience leads to that. And that's a feel thing. You're going to feel that when you meet Hersh, if it fits you. And then Hersh will tell you, if he's not a fit, he'll find somebody to fit. And I know that he's done that many times. And we talked about, I think, people I introduced you to, which is really important. Now, during this conversation, you mentioned PR, SEO, website. It's a great comment, but talk to us about, okay, I have a company, I've got XYZ PR person, got a website person. How do you fit in the mold of all that?
Yeah, that's a really, really insightful question, Steve, because the trajectory, it's kind of like a vertical integration right here at the very beginning of your journey. And for me, it's like, in a way, it's probably not the best for my business, because I'm at the first stop of somebody's building their brand or pivoting or rebanking their image, and none of these other people necessarily can really refer down to me as the next stop, where I have a number of experts, best in class, partners that are the perfect fit for a lot of my clients. But really, before you can go to any of those other places, you've got to have a great, resonant, incomparable message. And that's kind of my promise to my clients, is I'm going to help craft an incomparable message. I mean, that sounds simple, but it's going to basically mean that there is nobody like you, and when we're done working on what we're working on, everybody will know that. And so I think that without that, you can't go on to the next step. The next step is really web search, profile, right? Because now you have an image that you want to proliferate, but first make sure that everything on the web, that is what we call your cohort, your audience, your avatar, that those people can find you. And there are people who do that really well. Jason Barnard, I don't know if you know Jason from Calicube. He's probably the best in that field, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Then when you have your web presence set up, and you're like, okay, now the PR machine needs to be turned on, and I did PR as my bread and butter for 20 years, but now, branding and message therapy and messaging is really where I sit. But I think rather, there's publicists who can get you booked on podcasts, but all that stuff. Those are all good services. Those are all what I call execution. You know,
Mhm.
they will get you on stage. Media advisory is what somebody like Vinny does, Vinny Potestivo. Vinny, who actually I named my website Yes Brand Method because when he was on Yes Brand, he said, I love what you're doing. It's a method of copywriting. It's a method of communicating. You should call your company the Yes Brand Method. And I said, okay, I bought that thing that day. So Vinny, who is like me, really intuitive about brand, knows where to place people out in the world. So
Yeah.
like that, you do the message, the search, and the media, and that's the triple header that I think people really need to consider when they look at the big picture of how they're going to get their best possible brand with the best possible profile with the best possible exposure.
A lot of messages in there, but one of the ones I want to point out is together we serve your network. If you
Yeah,
didn't have
yeah.
Vinny in your network, he wouldn't have said Yes Brand Method. My podcast, same thing. Rich Kozak, hey, you're
Oh,
on that
yeah,
call.
yeah.
Yeah, and this is the power. What's helping Hersh get where he is today is building a network. I'm in his network. He's in my network, and we're always working together. Maybe it's once a month. Maybe it's next week I meet somebody or he meets somebody. It's powerful. We'll jump into the podcast here probably in the next segment, but when it comes to messaging, does it matter if you're a small, medium-sized business or a large business, or is it just a different message?
It it Well, I mean, it matters in terms of what's your, next figure goal. So let's say you're a mom and pop business, and it's a six-figure business, and the next goal is to get it in the seven figures, or it's very close to seven, but you want to get it in the seven somewhere in the $1 to $5 million range, or $1 to $3 million a year range. All that stuff matters because the objectives are different. So, I'm fortunate in that I have work at this stage with clients who are, in the 7 or 8 figure range, but that also means that their goals are a little bit different. If they're, as people who are earning 8 figures in with their business are probably very concerned, hopefully very concerned with the social aspect. What are they doing to give back? What are they doing for their fellow, all of that stuff. So their image may be turned toward philanthropy, toward purpose, um, or they may be a purpose-driven business out of the gate, and they may be, but I don't generally work with startups because I did in my career, and it's been great in the sense that some of my longest standing clients started their businesses the day that I did, but I find that, for me, it's the best fit are people that are established but looking to do the next thing.
Yeah. Oops. And let's fix that. There we go. We're going
There
all
we are. We're
cockeyed
both
here.
there.
Yeah, it's like, hey, he was on top of me. What's going on? He's better than me, anyways. Um, so with a small business, of course, and you'll have referrals for people, but they need to work on their messaging too. It's like you said, it's different. So somebody that's in a small business right now, or maybe even a startup, what's a
Yeah.
piece of advice you'd give them?
A piece of advice for people who are starting something new is build your brand from the inside out. You know, don't look outside at what you think the audience wants. Lead with that one really special thing. Like I'll say to somebody here, this is kind of a tip for people in that position. I'll say if you write down your mission statement and you look at the last sentence, probably the last sentence is the most important because you're a little bit shy. Like we said in the beginning, you're a little bit shy about like, stating your bold ideas because you're new. You're new. You don't want to piss anybody off. You don't want to alienate anybody. Don't worry about that. Really start to focus from the very beginning. From the very beginning, have that niche in mind.
Sounds like doing comedy too. Like you said earlier, you throw out that comedy, the arrow flops, you just move on. No laugh. You just like it's part of the whole.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's another great lesson is don't get it. I was watching the movie Wall Street last week, and I remember the line, "Don't get emotional about stock," and it's like don't get emotional about anything when you're starting a business because everything's going to be challenge, solution, new fire, new challenge, new this, hose broken, get a new hose. It's going to be, don't get emotional about any of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's going to change 6 months later. It's going to be different than what it looked like. And that's good. It's not bad.
That's the process.
Yeah. And be uncomfortable to be comfortable as an entrepreneur or business owner. So just be prepared. Uncomfortable is a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, we're at a little break here. You've been talking this whole time. I'm going to let you get a little bit of water because that's the kind of guy I am.
Thank you.
We'll take a little 3-4 minute break and we'll come back with the incredible Hersh. Welcome back to Together We Serve TV show. Well, you guys have seen the last 25 minutes how powerful and how wonderful Hersh is and what he's doing. And he's got that servant heart. Together we serve. Excuse me. You saw the partnerships he has, the way he can help you, not only with his business, but with other people. That's the power of this. Instead of searching and trying to find people, let's go to people like Hersh and find out how we can help. So I suggest after the show, you've got some information. I'll put it in the show as you'll see it scroll across. Reach out to him. Jump on a discovery call. You've got a business that's, you want to scale it. This is the guy for you. I know I'm going to hire him when I'm ready to do that. I'm getting close here because I've used him already, and I saw the power of just a little advertisement, how much my sponsor was so happy with once I shared it with them. Took a lot of stress off me. So with that being said, we're going to start to have some fun. Hersh, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
We're going to get into this, but first I want to talk about the podcast. As you know, we've talked about this. What a great way to get your message out and other people's messages. Talk about what your goal is, your podcast, and talk about what they are.
Well, my first podcast, well, let's start with Yes Brand, the one behind me. So Yes Brand has honestly been evolving. It's now the fourth season. You were one of the first guests. I believe you were the third guest on Yes Brand. And what I try to do there is have people who are not just branding experts, although I have my share of colleagues and branding experts that come on the show. So you get a lot of tips on that show. But I also bring in people who are business owners who are taking responsibility for their own brand image. And it could be their personal brand or their business brand. I'm focused right now working with a lot of people on their personal brand. But as you know, Steve, in this age where there are so many platforms to put up your business and promote yourself, your personal brand, like on LinkedIn, is so important. So in any event, what Yes Brand does is it brings people who own businesses front and center to talk about their business, represent themselves, but have fun, have a good time. It's based on the yes and rule of improv, which is you never say no to a suggestion. So someone comes to do a scene with you and they say Martians landed. You don't say, no, they didn't. Something else happened. You make the scene work. You say yes, and they're all wearing Prada suits, and then the other person says, yeah, and for people with the 3 legs, the suits kind of fit them pretty well. It's just, you just snowball from there. So Yes Brand is like a snowballing podcast. And then Truth Tastes Funny, as I mentioned, is about surviving and thriving in a chaotic world. And of course, it's by no means morose or overly serious. It's fun. It's looking at the craziest things and the most serious topics, as people who have overcome drug addiction, people who have, dealt with homelessness, people who have had the most serious things happen, but have found solace in humor.
That's a little laughter. Okay, now stop laughing, audience.
That's
okay,
funny because a little laughter, it's like this little tiny voice, and you're like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with a little laughter. It's kind of funny.
And then, by the way, audience, this guy could do some great voice impersonations, and it's incredible. I'll tell you what, if he was a comedian, I would go pay to watch him because he's funny.
Steve, what I did yesterday, not to interrupt you, but thank you for saying that. But what I did yesterday, and I rarely anymore combines the stand-up stuff with work. I don't mind doing like a TED Talk, speaking engagements, and they're funny, but I don't go to clubs anymore and do like stand-up. But I just was feeling it, and I was leaving a voice message on LinkedIn for someone to check out a video I'd created for them to introduce myself and so forth. And I decided to just do Christopher Walken. And I left the message and I said, hi, it's Chris Walken. I just wanted to make sure that you saw Hersh's video because it's really good, whatever. But you gotta you gotta have a sense of humor about stuff.
No, especially in business. I think with everything that's going on, with COVID, with all that, people are so serious. I think that's another thing that you bring to the table, much of everything else that I mentioned as well.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into this. Let's do a yes brand like we did on your show.
Right.
Let's do something with the audience for about 5 minutes and 5 or 6, 7 minutes, and let's have some fun.
Okay. So are we taking calls from the audience?
Let's and there won't be calls because this is recorded. But
right. Okay. Because I was going to say, we can take calls from the audience, but when you're recording, it puts a little bit of a wrench in the works.
Well, we can change it if you want.
Well, we can do a call-in show where you're the host and I'm different people calling in.
That's perfect. Let's do that.
Okay. So if we had an audience, we would say we need a suggestion from the audience for a topic of the call-in show. But we can just kind of come up with something,
Let's
what's a service? What's a really, really not useful service that a person might have? Think of that.
Well, we could talk about AI since we talked about it. I mean, it's
okay.
AI would be perfect.
Okay, AI is perfect. So you're hosting and you're answering questions about AI. Any question that people have about AI, and I'll be a person who's calling in, and you can tell me who I am. In other words, you'll say this is so and so calling in, and they want to know something, and you can just say whatever you feel like saying, and I'll be the person.
All right, ding-a-ling. Hey, we have on the call today Joseph from the UK. He wants to know how he can use AI for gardening.
Hello, hey Steve.
Hey
Steve,
there, Joseph.
My name is Joseph. Yeah, what I'm wondering is, can AI take care of me lawn? Is it going to do me lawn work?
Well, it's not physical; it's virtual, so I don't think that'll happen.
Well, I don't understand because, if AI is supposed to be so bright, it should do everything that I need it to do.
Well, that's a great point, but can you read?
Are you having me on? Are you taking the piss? Can I read? What do you mean? What kind of show is this? Hands up.
New caller. Okay. Welcome, William from Montana. He's out camping and hiking, and he's out in the woods and wants to know, how is AI going to help with my hunting?
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
So, all right. So this is Bill. I'm in the woods, and I started out wondering about AI and camping, but there's a bear. There's a bear, and if you can't tell, I'm not from Montana. I'm just hunting in Montana, and it's my first time hunting. And so, I mean, how can AI help me if I got to do something about this bear? Because he's coming through the brush like he's going to be here in a minute.
Run as fast as you can. AI can't help with that. Just keep them running.
I'm trying to make a running system. I don't know.
Okay, we lost that caller. Let's hope the bear didn't get him. I'm sure AI could have helped, but he's running too fast. And how about that guy from California? He's from Santa Cruz. This is Joe, the surfer. He just got off the big waves, and how is AI going to help me get a job?
Yeah, dude. Hey, thanks so much for having me on, man. Yeah, I'm like, my mom was telling me the other day, hey, Joe, it's time to get out of the house. You live in Santa Cruz for a long time. It's beautiful, but you don't have a job, and you're coming up on 50, and maybe you should just use AI and get a job. So what do you think, Steve?
I think you type in ChatGPT, how do I get a job, and go through that. Do it on your phone. You probably have a phone like most of you young people, Gen Zs.
I do not.
Oh, borrow your mom's computer. I know your mom's computer has the recipes on it, right?
How do you know my mom's computer has recipes on it, dude?
Well, I guess I'm guessing, and I probably shouldn't be guessing. So thank you for that comment. But yeah, type
Well, no,
in.
I appreciate it, man. I'm gonna do that. And they have jobs on there on the computer?
They'll tell you how to do it. They'll give you advice and information. Again, you probably, I hope you've done a Google search in the last 10 years. It's something similar to that.
I did, dude. I did a Google
Yeah,
search last night, man. You can find pizza on Google.
there you go. So you're all aware. So go ahead, type in, how do I find a job in ChatGPT or whatever service, and I think that'll help you.
All right, thanks, bro.
Well, we got one more caller, actually, maybe two more. This is Betty from Florida. She's about 80. She told me she's 85. And what's this? She said on the phone, what's this fuss about AI? Hey, Betty, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, Betty, you sound very serious. And what's your question about AI?
Well, it's a serious question because everywhere I go, everything is AI. And at first I thought, I don't know if is it optical, is it something having to do with my glasses? I asked my optometrist, I said, am I going to have to change my glasses to make it AI? And he said, no, dear, it's nothing to do with that. But I want to know what's the big whoop? What is the big? Everybody's excited about it. I don't know. What is it?
Well, it's just a powerful tool to help you get you through your day. Maybe get you information for certain things that you're looking for.
You mean like vodka?
Uh, yeah, it might find you the best vodka. I've never been asked that before.
No,
Great
I
question.
mean like, something powerful to get me through the day.
Oh,
You know what I
you're
mean? A couple
talking.
of highballs never hurt no one.
Well, I wouldn't have an answer for that, but if that's your pleasure, jump on it. Have fun with it.
Well, sounds good. Whatever it is, that's the way I've looked at it over the years. Is every decade, there's a new tool to help you get through the day. One decade it's vodka. One decade it's it could be something with a something roll, and then there's a little pill, and then this decade it's this AI. You need
Yeah,
AI to get you through the day.
lot of different things. Just work through it, but just be smart about it.
Good advice.
You're very welcome. And I got a real quick call coming in. Okay, we better take this call. This is a gentleman from LA. He's a big tech guy. He's not happy with my answer about AI. He's been in technology for 20 years, and his name's Tony, and he wants to talk about AI.
How are you?
Tony, what is going on? I hear you have some thoughts about what I'm saying.
Well, I just think that you've created a paradigm that's completely impractical, and quite simply, you've fallen prey to the ravings and delusions of an industry that's barely given birth to itself.
I love the advice. Tell me more.
Well, I'll be happy to tell you more. I have a coupon code that I can give you, which is for my new talk, which at is usually priced at $75,000, but for your audience, I'm offering it at $7.50.
Well, that is a great discount, Tony. I appreciate that. So why would you discount it that much?
Well, it's quite honestly a service I'm providing. I know your show is called Serving Togetherness Serving, and
Yeah.
serving together is what I do. I don't do it for the money. I sold my first company for $850, and then I sold my second company for 1.2, and I'm hoping to sell my third company, which is about ready to be sold for $2. So I don't need money. I have plenty of money. I just want to share the wisdom that I've accumulated over my 17 years in business.
Well, we're coming to the end of the show, Tony. What's one piece of advice you give my audience about AI?
The one piece of advice that I would give the audience is don't purchase it until you've tried it. And you can try it on my talk. It's not technically a TED talk, it's a Ned talk, but it's also got big red letters, and you can come see me speak. I'll be at the Appalachia Forum, and we will be simulcasting. I don't know if you know what simulcasting is, but we're going to be simulcasting it all over the world, and that's going to be June 19th at 2 p.m. Australia time. 2 p.m. Australia time. I don't know what that is in LA or New York, but you can figure it out. And $7.50.
Tony, I appreciate that. Thanks for the piece of advice. I'm sure my audience appreciates that. And that's
Oh,
the
it's
end
my
of our
pleasure.
show.
Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. And what I love about that audience, one, it's funny, and I hope you laughed. I'm sure you did. But what you did, Hersh, is I think we did 5 avatars, 5 different messages about AI. Some people are going, that's pretty, and you were being crazy, like, I'd never do that. Vodka, AI, there's no.
Yeah.
And that's what you're showing, which I love when I did on your podcast that I learned about my business at the time, those different messages.
Very, very true. Interesting. And you held it together very well. And you know what I think was consistent with your character is that you were doing what you've always done, if I could take a minute to say, which is to connect people, to connect them with solutions. And that's your special gift is you listen to somebody, you don't judge them, you think about what they're asking and you give them the most useful answer possible. And I think that's a really important part of serving, whether you're serving your audience or your fellow person, you're trying to provide something that they need, because what they need is not necessarily what the next person needs. And that's where those customer avatars are so important.
Audience, that what he just said that last minute is $1 million tip. Listen, don't judge, and find a solution, whether it's you or me or Josh Tapp, a friend of ours, or Tony Robbins. Doesn't matter. That and you know what? More so for your soul, it's for your business.
Yeah,
and you'll grow with that. So thank you very much. Let's do some fun. We had just had fun, but I want personal fun.
Now, that was horrible. That was awful. Let's have some. Let's find some relief.
Well, let's get personal. I want to learn about Hersh. I know a lot about you. I want the audience. So, if you could interview anybody, dead or alive, who would you interview and why?
Alive.
Okay. And what would you say?
Great answer. Interview dead or alive. No, if I could, I'll give you one of each. Are you all right?
Yes.
I'll give you one of each. Let's see. So if I were to pick somebody from history, I would probably interview Moses. Moses would probably be someone from history, because Moses, some people know the story of Moses in the wilderness and the burning bush, and being given a kind of a mandate from God to go and rescue his people from slavery and serve him, and do and treat people as they should be treated, treat them as you would want to be treated. And I think the reason I want to talk to him is because we lose sight sometimes of what it means to have a mission. What does it mean to have a purpose, and to think of a purpose higher than your own? And so I think that's why I would want to talk to him. If I were going to talk to somebody who's alive, I think probably Warren Buffett, maybe. Warren Buffett, and of course I'm thinking, because he's on in years, his longtime business partner, Charlie Munger, passed away this year. The wisdom that sometimes we are impressed with people because they have money. And I think what's really interesting about Warren Buffett is he's never been impressive because he made money. He's been impressive because of the principles that he's applied and stuck to over so many years, and been happy with the priorities that he's laid out in his life. And that, so, and there are people who haven't made money, don't care about money, and they're happy too. But I think as a person in business and as a heart-centered person, I'm always interested in talking to people who are able to place priorities in the right order.
Great answers. I would be with both of those. Well, we come to the end of the show. As always, I knew this hour would go super fast because that's what Hersh does. I want to thank you so much. Real quick, minute or less. What's the last words you want to leave with the audience?
First of all, thank you, Steve. It's been such a pleasure. It's always great being with you, seeing you, being inspired by your goodness and your sense of purpose and your willingness to engage. So that is always a pleasure. And then I would say that take a few minutes. This is something that anybody can do, and it's just a check-in. I would say, as busy as you are, as ambitious as you are, and as eager to help others as you are, take a minute to sit with yourself and treat yourself like I just alluded to with the Moses thing. Just treat yourself as kindly as you can imagine treating anyone. Just look at yourself, appreciate all the great things about you, all the wonderful things that someone might say about you, and just say them to yourself. Nobody's listening. Nobody's judging you. Nobody's going to think anything of you. This is your own private, quiet moment to tell yourself how amazing you are, and then just accept the compliment. Accept that compliment from yourself. That's my suggestion for the audience, for all of us today.
So from the message therapist, that can't be a better message that goes out at the end of this show. Don't forget, next week, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, another episode. It'll be Kelly Springer talking about nutrition and how you can get your nutrition paid for through your insurance, which is a powerful message. We'll see you all next week. Thank you. Have a great week.